Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Election Day. Um, really excited and glad that the NCAA pushed for this day off for our student athletes. We know it's disruptive for everybody that's in season, and to my response to those that have an issue with it, that's just kind of too bad. This is something that we needed to make sure that our young people knew was important. There were a lot of protests about a lot of things. There's a lot of discourse, some positive, some negative about a lot of things. It need to be emphasized that we can't be a nation of just people that like to yell and talk at each other, but that we have to exercise our rights to influence the course of our local and national government. So excited that we made this choice as the NCAA, and strongly encourage all of our student athletes in particular, to take part. As of right now, we have no COVID issues on our football team. So I'll give you a bit of an injury report that so you don't have to ask the question, and none of these are COVID related. We have a list of guys that are out long term, as in unlikely to return this season. Dorian Maddox, Jacob Mangum-Farrar, Tristan Sinclair, and Nick Toomer. A couple of guys are week to week, but all three of these guys are unlikely for this weekend unless something drastically changes, but most likely out for Oregon. That is Gabe Reed, Caillou Kelly, and Loa Kafusi. Gabe Reed will most likely be replaced by Thunder Keck. Thunder Keck will get his first start. Just got on scholarship this past week. Had an outstanding camp. Has been a really good special teams player for us. But we will also play multiple outside linebackers in our base and nickel packages. So he'll get to start there, but we're going to play a good group of guys. Yet to be determined who will start in place of Caillou Kelly. Probably make that announcement later in the week. Maybe that followed us for a while know that I don't like to surprise people. So when we make that decision, we'll make that be known. And then we'll see when Loa can get back in there, start practicing and work himself back towards game day. Besides that, training camp's going well. First week game week has started off well. I think on a high note, guys are focused, guys are ready, guys understand the challenge that's ahead of us going on the road to play the defending champs. They've earned the right to be confident. They've got outstanding players. Difficult for us to really kind of hone in on exactly what we're going to see. So it's freeing to a certain degree because it makes us focus on ourselves, so that our rules are right, our techniques are right. Knowing that beginning of college football seasons anyway, without a preseason, you have to imagine that these coaches are working hard and adding to their schemes anyway. But now that you have a new starting quarterback, a new pass game coordinator, a new offensive coordinator, there's some things you can look at and some things really we just have to trust our rules, in particular on the defensive side. But offensively, we're playing against one of the top defenses in the conference last year. And fully believe that they've added to their scheme. It was very difficult to run on, very difficult to pass on, extremely difficult to score on. So our challenge is right ahead of us, and we're excited about going up to Eugene and playing a football game.
First question will go to James Crapia from the Oregonian. Go ahead, James.
David, you were more disruptive against them on a per play basis than anybody last year. 7 negative plays out of 54. Beyond Tuhill not being there anymore, what was it that made you so successful last year against, I know the scheme changes, but what can you try to do between Casey not being here and Gabe now being out to try and replicate that this weekend?
Well, as many of you know from last year, we had some serious ups and downs. Sometimes coordinated on opposite sides of the ball. Days where offensively we were doing well and defensively we were banged up. Last year against Oregon was one of those games where we played really well on the defensive side. Casey played well, Gabe played well. Jordan Fox, I believe, made some plays too. The ball didn't bounce our way a couple times. We actually dislodged the ball twice. It just bounced right back to the quarterback both times. But for us, it was a combination of the right guys being healthy at the right time and being able to play well. Offensively, we didn't back that up. Like I said, this defense is hard to move the ball on. We got the ball in the scoring position a couple of times and really couldn't put it in. Then couldn't move the ball with any effectiveness for the rest of the game, honestly. So combination of guys playing well, guys being healthy, and really coming to the challenge. It was known then how good Oregon was. And our guys really rose to that challenge. We just couldn't finish it in all three phases.
Next question is from Kyle Bonagura with ESPN.com.
Hey, David. General impressions of Joe Moorhead, and what do you do to prepare for a coordinator change when you have to play them in the opening week of the year?
Well, Joe's one of those guys that's very well respected from different stops around college football. All of his offenses have been balanced. They've been respectable, been able to run the ball. He brings a toughness to him. The play action game, as well as some of the spread concepts that he'll hit you with. So still hard to just guess and hard to pick something to look at. So our defense has looked at bits and pieces of different things, but mainly focusing on the personnel at Oregon and then our rules as far as how we line up to formations and how we respond to our run gaps and how we plan on playing in our coverage. So we just know that they're going to be well coordinated. They're going to be physical, and they're going to try to take advantage of what they perceive as our weakness. So we'll have to see how the game progresses to see how they're going to attack us. But once again, it's a little bit freeing to say, hey guys, you know what? Here are our rules. Here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it, because we don't have any film truly that we can trust.
And then from a personnel standpoint, what stands out about their offense?
Well, they're going to be big up front. That's where they've been the last few years, big and long on the offensive line. They've got an extremely underrated running back that has made big plays and big situations. There are times, especially with the quarterback that all of us really appreciated last year, Justin Herbert. There were games where the running game took over, and this guy's got a chance to be really, really good on our level and the next one. So we can't have any mistake about how good of a player this young man is. But also knowing that they've reloaded on the outside too. They've got speed outside. We've watched this quarterback, watched him in high school. He got some playing time this past year. We know how talented of a passer he is. We understand about his stature as well. Like I said, this is a big challenge for us in game one.
Next, we'll go over to Troy Clarity from the TreeCast.
Hey, Coach, two things. One, first off, both secondaries here. Your initial read on Oregon's secondary and Caillou Blue Kelly's status. How does that change things for Stanford's secondary on Saturday?
Well, as far as we're concerned, we had planned on playing multiple guys anyway. This kind of changes that quite a bit. We'll see who we put out there first, but we anticipate possibly playing 3 or 4 corners throughout the course of the day. And in particular, if you look at our nickel packages and rotating guys in to keep everybody fresh, but at the same time, we got some guys that have practiced really well that deserve the right to play. They've earned the right to get on the field. So I'm excited about those guys, some of those guys getting their first real live action. As far as Oregon secondary, yeah, they've got a tough scheme. They've got a tough scheme that's built to confound the quarterback from time to time on his post snap reads. So we know that they have got the guys to fill that in combination of dropping 8 guys into coverage, rolling the coverage one way or rolling it the other way, playing too high, but then also giving you pressure, and then sprinkling in that man-to-man. So we know they got the guys to play all those schemes, and they do a great job of disguising what they're doing. So for us, once again, focusing on us, as every football coach says, but really until you play a couple of games, you don't really know who you are, and you don't really know who your opponents are until they put a few games on film. So for us, we had to go in, work on the things that we've been working on, and try to go out there and execute.
Second thing, camp's over, game week is here. What do you sense is the biggest strength on the field with the squad, and what's your biggest question mark with the squad on the field right now?
You guys know those are hard questions for me to answer until we play a real football game. You know, I would say one of the strengths on our football team is valuable experience from last year. We got a lot of guys on our team that played a lot of ball last year, and they're all better than they were last year. You know, I think that's a strength, in particular at the quarterback position, at our receiving core, and on the offensive line. Got a lot of young guys that played a lot of ball. Like our tight ends are coming back, or an experienced group. You know, on the defensive side, we're sprinkled in experience some places and not as much experience in other places. But I think we've got length and we've got an athleticism. We'll have a good chunk of guys, in particular on the defensive side, that we're very high on, but they're going to learn. They're going to learn about college football kind of on the fly, which at some point in time is nerve-wracking, and at the same time exciting, because I think they're pretty good. I think they're only going to get better week by week. So, you know, taking this group up to Eugene, game one, I think it's going to be a little chillier up there than it has been down here in Northern California. But with a good group that is going to gain experience as we go.
Next, we'll go back to James Crapia. Go ahead, James.
David, sort of a follow on their defense. They were one of only, I think, 2 Pac-12 teams over the prior decade to hold you guys without a touchdown last year. I realized that KJ hurt his thumb in the game, and there were a lot of factors there. The O-line was banged up. What is it about Andy's scheme that's just kind of it presents an inherent challenge? He likes to be pretty multiple, but whether it be the personnel they lost in the secondary, you guys lost Parkinson, all that kind of stuff is changed. But what carries over? What is it about his scheme that presents kind of an inherent challenge?
Well, it was our game, and it was a bunch of other games last year also, is that they don't give you a lot of opportunities. And when they give you one, you better take advantage of it. And we had really one opportunity with the one-on-one in the end zone early in the game with Colby Parkinson, and kind of missed the throw, different play, you know, played well by the defensive back. We couldn't quite get our hands on it. And then the rest of the time, we've got coverage. You know, you got guys getting one guy over the top, one guy underneath. So there's not a lot of those one-on-one opportunities that you love to have in the red zone, that we love to have in the red zone. So, you know, a little bit on our scheme and how we do things, a little bit on when they give you an opportunity, you better take advantage of it. So that's a big thing about that. And once again, like I said earlier, it's post-snap. You know, pre-snap might be one read, and then post-snap might be something else. So the quarterback being able to diagnose that and after the snap is a real key to being successful against this defense.
Next question is from Harold Gutman. Go ahead, Harold.
Hi, Coach. I guess on paper, at least, you know, this first game is looking to be your hardest in that, you know, Oregon was picked to win the conference and you're going at Oregon, you know, week one. Just what are your thoughts playing that game as the opener as opposed to maybe having some, you know, lead in time and playing it later in the season?
Yeah, as I like to say, you know, games on paper are going to receptacle. So without a preseason, how people pick who's going to win, who's not going to win, you never know. You never know until you start playing football games. You know, the bottom line for us is the Oregon team is playing at home. They've earned the right to play with a lot of confidence. They're defending champs. They got a lot of guys coming back that are guys you have to account for, and really in all 3 phases. So that's been our focus. You know, I don't know which games are going to be harder than any. I kind of chuckled early on when we were putting the schedule together, and you know, I was part of the process of discussing how this was going to go But we talked about not starting the season with rivalries. And I said, well, it's kind of impossible because I feel like everybody in our conference is a rival. So we got a rivalry game this week. I think we got a good rivalry game the following week, followed up by 6 more. So, or 5 more. So for us, we got to get up for every single game. We didn't earn the right last year to look down on anybody. We have an opportunity, an obligation to play our best football when it's time to kick it off.
Next, we'll go over to Jacob Rayburn.
Hey, Coach. Wondered your thoughts on the development of Branson Bragg. We've heard very consistently this camp how well he's doing. Where is he right now? And how would you compare that to a year ago this time, or even where he was headed to before he got hurt?
Well, the thing you have to remember about Branson Bragg is this man was highly touted. And we're very excited about his ceiling. We think his ceiling is extremely high. He missed a lot of time in training camp last year, and really missed the beginning of the season, and finally got healthy, and probably wasn't 100%, but got healthy and had been practicing at guard. Then all of a sudden, after an injury, he had to be kicked out and play tackle. So he's true freshman guard that starts his first game at tackle and played pretty well, honestly, and then got hurt towards the end of the game, and then we didn't see him in a uniform, for a long time. So this is a young man that's very talented. That's a big square body. That's athletic and physical, but he's played almost one full college football game. He's had a good camp, but that lack of experience shows up. We've got still 3 out of our 5 starters. We keep reminding ourselves as a staff, these guys are sophomores. They haven't seen a lot of football. Now, a good chunk of them played a lot last year, but Branson wasn't one of those. So as he's doing extremely well, there's still things that he's learning on the fly. But we're excited about him. Once again, I think his ceiling is extremely high, and we're ready to get this thing kicked off and start his career off on the right foot.
Next, we'll go over to RJ Abedia. Go ahead, RJ.
Coach, you let off obviously with a bunch of guys who are going the wrong way injury-wise, but I want to ask you about a guy who's coming the other way in Ethan Bonner. Can you kind of take us through the major benchmarks that he hit over the course of the year and how he jumped up and earned that starting job?
Yeah, Ethan's one of those guys when we saw the film, and here's a guy that was fast, that was athletic, that got pass breakups, and let's talk about what we're talking about. Here's a Caucasian corner that you don't see a lot, and so we honestly believe that was one of the reasons why he was under recruited, because his film was as good as, if not better than, a lot of guys that we saw, and we've been excited about him. And he got injured in high school, got banged up again a couple times here, and every time he was healthy, he was great in practice. So the big thing for him was to be, patient. He's got a great support system at home. He's got great support from us here. For him to come back and be healthy and really be excited about playing football. And because it's been a long time for him, battled through a bunch of injuries. I think he's a lot tougher, a lot older, a lot smarter. And now after going through all these things and now ready to go out there and play some football. He is fast, he is long, he's athletic. He's got good ball skills. So we're excited about him getting out there, and wish he would have gotten some more time last year, but wishing doesn't help anybody. This is where we are now, and I'm excited about him getting out there and showing people what he can do.
Is there a silver lining just specific to him in terms of how the spring and summer played out, just in terms of downtime and him having the chance to truly get to where he needed to be to compete?
I think that's true for a lot of guys on our team that missed all of, if not big chunks of last season, is that this offseason has pretty much been the same for everybody. So it's not like they've missed a lot of football, but they've been able to truly train and actually rehab first and then train. If we started training camp on time, I think some of these guys would have had to try to finish their off-season rehab while everybody else is playing football. So for these guys, these extended time has probably been great for their bodies, not only to have more time to recover, but then to truly train and prepare to play football. And the fact that it's a shortened season. I think all those things, have played into a lot of injury guys' situations going into this year.
Next question is from the Stanford Daily's Daniel Martinez-Krams.
Hi, Coach. Just wanted to ask about who's traveling, if you're taking a smaller group because it's harder to have those guys, or a larger group in case something comes up later in the week.
So our travel roster, sorry, I almost knocked my iPad over here. Our travel roster by the standards of the conference, I believe it's the number 75. So it looks like we'll take right around 75, maybe take 74. We'll see. Combination of who's healthy. But our operations group and our training staff got a really good plan for us as far as being able to take that many guys, take them safely, minimize, if not try to extinguish potential high-risk contacts based on how we room, how we go to the stadium, how we eat, how we meet. So I believe we can take a good sized group, and if something does happen, still have enough reserves to be able to go out there and play the game with our guys. So it's taken orchestration. We had another meeting on the intricacies today. I'm sure we'll have at least one more, if not two more, by the time we get to Saturday, to make sure we're all on the same page and can handle all the potential pitfalls of traveling and playing a sport during the pandemic.
Any more questions for Coach Shaw? RJ, go ahead.
Coach Drew expressed a lot of confidence this week about where the run game was at, just in terms of identity and, that thing we've been asking you about forever almost now. But how do you feel about the run game right now, just in terms of knowing the way you want to start attacking people?
Well, my first feeling is that it's vital. We weren't healthy enough, didn't play well enough last year for it to really be where we thought it could be. So being healthy and deeper up front on the offensive line, I think is a big key. To have I'm torn up that Dorian Maddox is not going to be a part of it, because he had an outstanding offseason, but we look forward to him coming back next year. But at the same time, I think we've got a good group of backs. And speaking of guys coming back from injury, Justice Woods has had a great camp, and we're excited to see him get back in there. So to have three upperclassmen backs, to have a good group of young running backs that we're also excited about. I think the combination of being healthy and deep up front and being deep at the running back position with some talented guys, I think is going to help us get back to where we really want to be, which is a balanced offense. I've said this before, and not everybody believes it, and that's okay. We earned a reputation around here for almost a decade, and a lot of that was because we were playing games with leads. But for the most part, when the game was in doubt, first and second down, we were balanced. We're balanced between run and pass. And as a head coach and an offensive guy with an offensive background, that's what you love. You love to be able to run the ball with efficiency and the possibility of explosive plays. You want to be able to throw the ball with efficiency and the possibility of explosive plays. So the mentality for us is not just to go in and run the ball every down. The idea, though, is that we can be physical, that we can be efficient, that we can break some plays because of our scheme and our ability, and have that be coordinated well with our drop back and play action and movement game. So the idea of hopefully all that coming together, and once again different than last year. Knock on wood, we're pretty healthy up front, and with little guys with a little bit more experience, so we can put a little bit more on them. I think we had to take care of some of our young guys. They played as well as they could play last year, but we played with 3 freshmen for a majority of the season, and we just couldn't put that much on those guys. We're trying to get them to survive week to week, but now we're past the survival phase. Now we're at the phase of going out there and executing. So that's the hope, is that we can go back and be balanced between run and pass, being efficient and explosive.
Have time for a couple more. Next, we'll go over to Troy Clarity.
You're going to be walking into Autzen Stadium, but you won't be greeted by 59,000 of the Ducks football team's closest friends. How does that potentially change things for this week's matchup?
Well, there's part of me that is going to miss that. There's one thing going into that stadium, you love that feeling that you get. They play, Jack White and the White Stripes. Played that a couple times during pregame and during the game. Get you fired up and you hear the crowd, the fans. But the other 80% of me is excited that our quarterback will actually be able to communicate and be able to hear each other. So I think that's a positive. And at the same time, I am going to miss that atmosphere this entire year, and prayerfully hoping that we can line up next year and be able to fill the stadiums again, and for home and away, and have the kind of crowds that we're accustomed.
Next, we'll go over to RJ again. Go ahead, RJ.
Coach, the December signing period the last couple of years has kind of become the de facto signing period for the bulk of guys, especially for you guys. I'm curious, both for you and just college football as a whole, do you expect more guys to maybe hold out to the February date just because of everything that's come before it?
That is a great question. My guess is the majority of people will still sign in December. We've been able to do some great virtual visits, as many people around the country. These student athletes, these prospective student athletes, have gotten an opportunity to get to know their coaches, get to know other recruits, get to know some of the guys on each team. So many of them are still being able to make informed decisions. So a lot of those guys are still going to sign in December, but you will have a couple that I believe will hold out just to see what happens in the winter. I don't anticipate it being a free-for-all. We're not going to be out of this pandemic anytime soon. So I don't know when the NCAA is going to start lifting some of these visiting rules, because once you lift those rules, now you're going to have essentially what you don't want to have in the middle of a pandemic, which is people going from one place to another place to another place to another place, making themselves potentially vulnerable, and at the same time potentially making campus to campus vulnerable. So I think some people may hold out to a certain degree to that second signing date, but I don't see any drastic changes to the visiting policies. It could happen, but we'll see. I know a lot of people are pushing forward because they would love to have it. I know a lot of student athletes are missing that opportunity to go visit campuses. But at the same time, I think we also need to be responsible. This is not a political statement at all. It's just a health statement for what's going on around our country and the numbers that have started to rise again. So that's going to be a tough one. I think that's the biggest issue a lot of guys are waiting for, if they do wait until February. But I still believe I think the majority of guys are still going to sign in December because they've been able to gather enough information and make the right choice for themselves.
And then just a really quick follow-up. I think you kind of tipped your hand a little, but what is your attitude about the unofficials that have been happening, where student athletes that can afford it make a trip, but obviously can't talk to anyone, can't see anybody, but can do the thing on their own? Do you have any feelings in either direction about those?
Yeah, we can't really encourage those. Some people want to do it, and that's fine as long as they adhere to city and county and campus regulations. We've heard about it going on all over the camp, all over the United States. I think it is somewhat of a positive just for these people to get an idea of the school if they've never visited before. I know we're fortunate to be in a place in early November where it's still 70 degrees. That's always a possibility for these people. It's still not the same. It's not the same as being able to host student athletes and their families and show them around campus and introduce them to everybody. But it's something that has gone on, and hopefully we can start to have unofficial and official visits before too long. Not sure when that's going to be, but I'm looking forward to those days where we can really host people on campus again.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Our first question will come from Jacob Rayburn with the Cardinal Sports Report. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Davis, how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Can't complain. And it's game week. So I just want to start there with, how does that sound to you, saying that it's game week, and where is the team right now from your perspective getting ready for Oregon?
I mean, it's exciting. It is game week. I mean, everyone's ready to play. We've waited a long time for this. I mean, with all the stuff that happened this off season, it's kind of bittersweet to finally get to this moment. I think everyone on the team's prepared. I think we had a really good past couple of weeks of practice. I mean, today's practice went really well. I thought we were doing a lot on offense that we were just executing at a high level. So, I mean, I think everyone's prepared for this week. I mean, we got a couple more practices to go and a little more to learn about Oregon and their defense, but I mean, I'm ready for it.
And a follow-up, the offensive line, went through a lot of, struggles last season, most of which wasn't really their fault. And a lot of the young guys got bigger, stronger, and put in a lot of work. What's your eval of those second-year guys, where they stand, who made kind of the biggest strides in this camp?
I mean, kind of all of them did. I mean, luckily, but also unfortunately, they had to play last season. But I mean, like you said, it did give them some experience from last season. And also, they really took advantage of this offseason to put on some good weight and get stronger. And I mean, come back and look better today. Those guys being Walter Rouse, Barrett Miller, Branson Bragg is back from his injury. Jake Hornibrook looks good, and Drake Nugent looks really good. I mean, they all put on probably 10, 15, 20 pounds. And I mean, they're moving better, they're stronger. And I mean, they know the offense better. So I'm excited to get out there and play with them.
Thanks, Davis.
Our next question will come from Janie McCauley with the AP. Go ahead, Janie.
Hi, Davis. Thanks for doing this. Jacob kind of went along the lines of what I was thinking as well, just in terms of waiting so many months to play. I mean, Coach Shaw, we've heard him say, we've had more Zoom meetings than anybody in the country. And is it strange actually game planning for an opponent in early November? I mean, is it finally something that, you guys feel like you can game plan with all the prep you've done on Zoom over these months? It's got to feel good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely exciting finally getting to look at some tape of other teams rather than just self-evaluating ourselves from our practices. I mean, we've waited a really long time for this. I think kind of how we've done Zoom throughout the offseason and these early practices at camp kind of allowed us to hit the ground running now that we're doing a little more on Oregon and game-specific stuff. So I think we've done that well. So, I mean, the platform on Zoom has worked out. And then also, I mean, everyone's just excited to get their mind focused on another team. So that's exciting.
We've heard some of your teammates say that being in the small pods starting out when you got back to campus has helped everybody learn things about each other. As a quarterback, have you learned, having some of those times with the guys that were smaller groups, do you know people's tendencies more? Can it translate onto the field where there are deeper connections that lead to big plays or things like that?
Definitely. So when I was in my small group pod kind of coming out this summer, I had fortunately some receivers in my group. And I mean, we were out there when we weren't allowed on the practice fields at school. We were finding field space around the area. And I mean, going out and just getting some extra work. So building that extra off-season chemistry definitely, I hope, will translate to hit some good routes and some touchdowns during the games.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question will come from RJ Abedia with the Bootleg. Go ahead, RJ.
Hey, Davis. So a little bit of a strange game week in that tomorrow is an off day. And usually it's one, Coach Shaw tells us it's one of the tough physical days of practice. Can you just break down kind of the pros and cons of a little bit different game week than what you're used to?
So yeah, like tomorrow's election day, so we're going to be fully off just so, I mean, the football offices don't really have an excuse for holding kids back from going out and voting. So that's really good. But we actually pushed our week back a week for these past 2 days. So on Sunday, we kind of did our Monday meetings and started the week on Sunday. So today was actually our like tough Tuesday practice. So we had a 2-hour practice, full pads. I mean, everyone really getting after it. And I mean, we'll have tomorrow off, but I think we'll be able to come back out on Wednesday prepared with another day of preparation because guys will be getting in the film, getting in the current playbooks and game plan we already have out. So I think it honestly might be able to help us a little bit, just getting a little more prepared for this weekend.
And just to follow up on special situations, goal line, third down, red zone, how would you evaluate where you guys are at this point and how much of that has been a focus over this past week or so?
That's a huge focus. Not necessarily this past week, because normally we put that in the later half of the week. So we haven't worked on it too much for Oregon specific stuff, but I think the end of camp, we stressed that situational football a lot. I think our offense is in a really good feel of all those situations. And I mean, going out on Saturdays, that's what win games. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of pressure myself to have a lot of that success come through me, but also rely on my teammates in those tough situations that we'll get out and go after it.
Our next question will come from Scott Reese with Stanford Radio. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, there we are. Davis, good to see you. Apologies, I'm sure you've gotten this somewhere along the way, but since I haven't had a chance to catch up with you. First year as the unquestioned starter coming in. The Stanford playbook is well renowned for its breadth and complexity. Just wondering where you are now with the mastery compared to say where you were a year ago and how much that half a year of experience and all that has helped you.
It's huge. I think I'm strides past where I was last year, just because, I mean, there's a big difference in knowing the playbook and then going out and actually being able to execute it on the field. So that's, I mean, just having the experience from last year gives me a lot of confidence to go out and do it this year and excel.
Cool. And since I've got the floor, I'll follow up with you. The wide receiver core is tremendous. Your thoughts on just the breadth of targets that you're going to have at your disposal, and not only that, but having worked with all these guys, especially the starters a year ago, there should be, I would imagine, a pretty good connection already.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm super excited for what we have this year on offense. I mean, I don't even really have to name names because you know all the guys we have and how dangerous each and every one of them is with the ball in their hands. So, I mean, that's just something that we can use to attack defenses this year. And I mean, it's going to make defenses really hard to game plan against us because they don't know who they need to double team or anything like that. So it's exciting.
Cool.
We have time for 2 more questions, so we'll go to Daniel Martinez-Krams with the Stanford Daily and then finish with Janie McCauley with the AP. Go ahead, Daniel.
Oregon obviously presents a lot of troubles for anyone, but normally going up to play at their place, the noise is a big factor. And then in practice, pumping in crowd noise and working on hand signals. This week, not really having that in game. How has it been to prepare without that? And then also preparing for a very quiet stadium likely?
I mean, in the past, I went up there, I guess 2 years ago now, and we ended up beating them near the end of the game, or in overtime, actually. And I mean, the stadium there is kind of, I mean, it's crazy. It's one of the loudest stadiums you'll get to in the Pac-12. Luckily, we're not going to have that this year. As of now, I think we don't have any fans, so we're going to have a certain decibel level of crowd noise that's pumped in through the stadium. But I mean, it is kind of a blessing going up there and just being able to communicate all of our calls, not really having to come up with those hand signals or silent cadences. So, I mean, it is a little bit of a blessing to have the stadium a little more quiet down. Kind of hopefully it'll calm down a bunch of our young guys and we'll be able to get out there and just be able to play.
Our final question with Davis Mills will come from Janie McCauley. Go ahead, Janie.
Davis, Daniel asked about the stadium too, which was on my mind. But in terms of election day tomorrow, how many on your team would you say have you guys worked to get registered to vote, who are eligible, and how important is that, and what kind of conversations have you guys had, and maybe some of the guys who are part of this new Cardinal Black have spoken up as well on the importance. Would you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I mean, this year, I mean, kind of the widespread voting information has been huge for everybody. Our football programs really urge that all of us get registered to vote, but they've also let us know that it's your choice completely. Coach Shaw even mentioned after practice, whichever way, if people are going to vote tomorrow or if they've already submitted mail-in ballots from out of state, I mean, just be proud that we're living in this great country. I mean, the people's democracy is huge, and everyone's vote counts. So, I mean, that's a big deal.
Thanks so much.
Hey, Curtis, I want to actually flip it up on you a little bit and ask you for the 3 most impressive guys you saw on your own offense over the course of training camp. Could be linemen, could be position guys. Who got your attention this camp?
I feel like a lot of guys have, made a lot of jumps and a lot of improvements, and everyone's been definitely, it's showing how hard everyone has worked in the off season as well as during camp. But if I had to name 3 specifics just off the top of my head, Davis has really impressed me. It's always difficult as a middle linebacker trying to, read offenses and trying to go up against a good offense when they have a really elite quarterback, which I think Davis is. Drew, you guys just talked to, he's really impressed me. And, I've always known about Drew, but just the jump that he's made as a leader as well on that offensive line and on the offense in general, that's really impressed me, and how he's been able to do that as well as keep his play at the level that he's kept it. And then Conor Weddington as well. He's such a dynamic player. Obviously a name that you guys know very well, but just seeing him get the ball in space and what he can do, it's dangerous. And so, these past 3 weeks, I've been able to see how dangerous he can be for sure.
And then just to follow up, we've been pestering the offensive guys about the run game all through camp, even going back to the spring, just in terms of scheme and consistency and all that kind of stuff. How strong is your run game right now? And how close to a finished product does it look to you as a defender?
I don't know the exact specifics of, what it's definitely supposed to look like. I don't really know the offensive playbook like that. Going against them is always a challenge though. I have immense confidence in our offense, and going against my O-line every day and my starting running backs and stuff like that, it's definitely a challenge for me every day. So if I had to personally say, I would think that they're in a pretty good spot based off what I've faced for the past 3 weeks. But, I guess we'll see on game day, but I'm very confident that they're exactly where they need to be.
Our next question will come from Jacob Rayburn with the Cardinal Sports Report. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Curtis, I'm going to actually piggyback a little bit on RJ's first question. Excluding yourself, the 3 most improved defensive guys at the end of camp.
Off the top of my head, like I said, there's definitely a lot of names that I could pull from, but Levani Damuni has really impressed me. The way that he's picked up the playbook and then applied that to the field as well as just a sophomore is very impressive. Kendall Williamson is someone who's really impressed me as well. He's somebody who's taking the leap in maturity for sure. He's considered an old guy now, and just the idea of him being a leader now is something that he's had to embrace, and I think he's done it in a great way. Ethan Bonner is another person I've been really impressed with. He's he's battled with injury early on in his career, but he's been doing a really, really good job in my opinion, both on defense and on special teams. And I'm really excited to see all of those guys play.
Something else I've thought about and wondered if maybe some of the guys on offense have helped give you this look. Containing mobile quarterbacks, making stops on mobile quarterbacks was a huge emphasis last season. It was something that I think Coach Shaw talked about the defensive unit struggling with. What's that been like this offseason, this training camp, I should say, of working on that? And now you're heading to a place where that could be a factor again.
I mean, yeah, obviously with mobile quarterbacks, that obviously adds another wrinkle to offenses that you have to stop. And that's something that we definitely noticed was an issue for us last year and that we wanted to improve on this year. And I think it's just, our coach and our defensive coordinator focus a lot on habits and forming the habits of running to the ball every single time and make sure that you can touch your hip to his hip. And I think that just sure tackling is the number one emphasis when it comes to mobile quarterbacks. And, we worked on that a lot, whether it was angle tackling, whether it was form tackling in Indy, whether not even running, just the technique part of it and getting that to be formed as a habit, and taking that to game day and not having to think so much and just instinct doing that every time.
Thanks, Curtis.
Yep.
Our next question will come from Scott Reese with the Stanford Radio.
Hey, Curtis, I got two for you. First of all, 4 years in the program, a position change, some big time injuries, and here you are seemingly ready to play your best football, right, as you embark on this year. I'm just wondering, where your head is at and what is your outlook for this season and how far you've come and the challenge that lies ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really, trying to keep my head down and focus on the team for most of camp, just trying to get everyone else ready and try to be as best leader as I can. But I'm really appreciative of where I'm at right now. You mentioned it. I had a position change and had to deal with some injuries early on in my career. And, there were times where I was pretty unsure of myself and wasn't sure what my career was going to be like in the future. And so, to be at this point, heading into week one, being able to play Oregon at Autzen, a trip that I didn't get to make 2 years ago when that crazy game happened, I'm very grateful to be where I'm at right now. And I've been making an emphasis to not take anything that I'm doing for granted because not too long ago, I was in a very different spot than I'm in right now. So appreciative is definitely the word that I think best embodies where I'm at right now. I'm also very excited, coming off of last year, it was my first year at a new position. And so I don't think I was as confident as I am right now. And, just being able to be a leader on the defense is something that I'm very fortunate to be. I'm very honored to have that position and I'm just ready for it. We've been waiting a very long time. I think the consensus on the team is that everyone's very anxious to play, and that's very well my feeling as well.
And I want to get your perspective on Ricky Mieson, a guy who you could probably relate to. Not a new position for him, but an entirely new sport, right? Guy comes in, a lacrosse player. A lot of curiosity, I think, last season to see what he would bring to the table, and then boom, half a game and he's gone for the year. What do you see in him? Where is he now, and what's his ceiling?
I mean, it's the comment I made about Kendall earlier. When you see guys transition usually from their sophomore and junior year, that level of maturity definitely increases a lot. And just seeing that in the way that he's worked in the offseason and the way that he's prepared for this season going into camp and now going into week one has just really impressed me. And to me, he's an athletic freak. He's 245 and can run like a DB. And that's rare. And that's what you look for in an elite linebacker. And so I'm personally just excited to see him get a chance to run free in the game.
Cool. Thanks.
Time for two more. We'll go to Rusty Simmons with the San Francisco Chronicle and finish with RJ Abedia. Go ahead, Rusty.
Yeah, you hit on some of this with Jacob and Scott, but I was going to ask you about, you told me a couple weeks ago about defensive goals this year, about raising physicality, stopping the run, and takeaways. 15, 20 practices in, how are you guys on those three things?
Still pushing ahead as best as we can, not taking our foot off the pedal. Obviously I think we've improved a lot, at least in takeaways for sure. It's been the main emphasis. We see guys running for loose balls, even on incomplete passes, trying to scoop it, fighting over the ball, punching for balls, even after the whistle's been blown. I mean, that's the type of habits that we've had to form. And we think will, take us to the next level as a defense. And then as far as physicality, we've done everything that we can with the reps that we've gotten to, increase our physicality, both in the run game and in the pass game, legally, obviously. But I think that we made a lot of progress. I think guys are in tune with the tackling, in tune with the takeaways. And I think that we're starting to get a better understanding that those takeaways and those aspects of defense are what's going to potentially win games for us.
And then I was going to ask you one off the field question. I know you're dialed into this with the election tomorrow. What are you telling your teammates? What are you telling the community as you go into this?
Just Coach Shaw had made a point earlier on the field, and I think that it was a really good point. But, something I'm trying to relay to my teammates is just appreciate, in a crazy time like this and in an election that will be emotionally overwhelming for a lot of people. I think it's really important as Americans to be appreciative that we live in a country to where we have the right to vote, and that, someone can't tell us not to vote, and that we're free to vote as we please. And I think it's important to not take that for granted and, take the opportunity to vote, because, there's people in other countries that would kill to be able to vote. And so, in an election like this, where it's probably one of the more anticipated elections in recent years, I just think that as some of our guys, coming out of high school, not necessarily having experienced the last election and just elections in general where they're able to vote legally, I think that it's really important to relay that information to them.
Much appreciated.
Yep.
Our final question will come from RJ Abedia. Go ahead, RJ.
There we go. I wanted to ask about Coach Sanders. We've heard an awful lot of good things about him. Can you just talk about his impact on you individually, on the room, and what we might see on the field different from your position group thanks to him?
Yeah, Coach Sanders is awesome. I only have great things to say about him. From the moment he came in, obviously, going into my 5th year, a coaching change isn't always something that you're, looking forward to. But he proved me wrong very quickly. From the moment he stepped on campus and stepped into our room, he made it clear that he was going to challenge us because he wanted us all to be the best versions of ourselves, both on and off the field. And I think that so far he's done everything in his power to have done that. And I'm very appreciative to have him in the room. I think that the other Obes would say the same. Personally, he's challenged me as an individual, being a 5th-year guy, just to find ways, now that I'm comfortable within the defense, scheme-wise and stuff like that, and with the techniques, finding ways to elevate my game and just constantly finding ways to challenge myself. And he's been a great, influence and a great mentor as far as challenging myself, and then just, taking little time to improve man technique or improve the way that I tackle, certain things that I may take for granted and just kind of let slip. He's always on me and just making sure that I'm challenging myself and trying to be the best version of myself. And then for the room, it's just making sure that, he does a good job making sure that everyone's okay as a person. He takes the time to step away from football sometimes and talk to us about life and talk to us about school. And he maintains a great balance of, challenging us on the field so that we can be the best players, but at the same time, making sure that we're being the best humans that we can off the field as well.